Hello, and thank you for joining us for the third instalment of a 4-part webinar series based around finishing insights and applications from both the Under-21 and Senior European Championships 2020. This webinar will look specifically at the assists and build-up to open play goals. My name is Simon Houston, and I am joined by Kearney and Martin Dighton. Okay, so the outcomes for this webinar. We're looking to observe insight from some of the data that we've collected on how goals were scored during these two tournaments. We're then going to relate this data at the top level of the game to implications it may have on coaches working within younger age groups and at grassroots level. And finally, just showing how some of that understanding of these implications may help inform practice design when we get on the grass. So the first bit of information is super simple. It shows that 81% of all open play goals from the Senior Men's Euros 2020 were assisted by a teammate. You can read the definition of how we classed an assist there. So the message is that 8 out of every 10 goals were assisted by a teammate. And just a question to the audience, how many goals would be assisted by a teammate within your environment? What would they look like and why? The next thing we're going to look at is the variation from where assists originated from on the pitch. So feel free to pause this video and digest the information at your own pace. But this picture shows that there's a nice amount of variation between assists from inside the box, high central areas and wide areas, mainly being the three key areas. But we've also got an appreciation for the deeper areas inside that half and also from the defensive half. So do our practices ever reflect this? The next piece of information shows where the goal scoring possession originated from on the pitch. This could be a transitional moment or a dead ball. And as we can see, the highest percentage there is when possessions have begun in the attacking third and resulted in a goal scoring opportunity or a successful goal scoring opportunity. So, Martin, you've seen some of that data there. What are the main implications for coaches that have come out of that information?
Yeah, thanks, Si. Some really insightful data there that gives us an idea. And you made the point about how do we relate that back to our own players and our own environment. So there's a couple of bits that jump to mind. The first one is this importance of team connections. So do we consider who we deliberately put alongside each other in practices to replicate what they'll come across at the weekend? If we play with the front three, how often do we link those front three together to try and assist each other and build up that relationship? Do we also consider the strategies and formations we play with and how that might affect the areas we were able to gain assists from? And the last bit, if we go right down the ages, just have a think about those that coach the younger ones. Are they ready psychologically to start assisting other people? When we know they're quite egocentric at that age and it's very much about me and I want to score. So there might be some understanding around expectations of what you might have for the younger ones. But certainly it's how do we get the players to connect to be able to assist each other? Second one that jumps out is the real variety in assist locations. Do you know where your team are most likely to assist from? Do you have some bias or some strengths as a team that you might try and assist from certain areas? But the key message is that assists come from everywhere. And we saw on that picture there, side that assists can come from our own half. So do we actually understand that and practice or create opportunities to practice that? And I just reflect on how often when I'm out seeing coaches, 9 times out of 10, if they're doing finishing practice, it involves crossing. We've just seen there that actually that wasn't the largest percentage, yet 9 times out of 10, that's what we practice. It's crossing and finishing. So maybe it's time to readjust how we see finishing and where it comes from, what the build-up is like for it. And then the last one is around relevant areas and numbers. So if we take the areas first, the pitch size is really, really important. If we want to try and get assists from wide areas, we might need a wider pitch than normal. We also might bear in mind that we might use the width of an 18-yard box because of the type of crosses we now see from inside the 18-yard box. And again, that was the highest percentage around assists. But also think about the depth you might need. So if you're trying to assist from deeper, have you got enough space in behind for the players to use that space? So just really considering the size of pitch you might need if you're going to specifically target a type of assist or an assist from a certain area. And the last bit's around numbers. So in grassroots football, I think we often balance or trade off success and realism. See a lot of coaches that are keen to give their players lots of success for their happiness, for their motivation, for their enjoyment. The danger might be, though, of weighting the success or there's more attackers than defenders is in the real world, it's not like that. You know, in the real world, there's often more defenders than attackers. How do we give them that balance of difficulty? What it does do for me, to summarize those three, is that it leads me to playing realistic game-like practices with them. Kearns, what jumps to mind for you around game-like practices and how that would fit?
No, I think you're spot on. If they can play games, whether it's small-sided games with a pitch and goals at either end, that variety of assist locations comes in straight away. I think, it also naturally provides transition moments. So the numbers in the moment become real. So you might have an overload or an underload, but there might be space to exploit. It brings in fast dynamic stuff if we can, but then it also, a game, naturally brings in build up opportunities. The connections between players is something that, the quality of that is really important. So what are the things that can help build that? Well, you've got body shape, are they on the half turn? That sends a signal to the passer. Positioning on shoulders, in between people, that sends messages. And then that sort of movement of, for example, showing and then spinning out, that sends a message to their teammates. I think player-to-player connections, building on that is will come out in games. Yeah.
Thank you both for the way you've interpreted the data there and related it to the coaching implications. The next thing, Martin, is the practice design that you've devised from those coaching implications.
Yeah, so as we just talked about, the when are we having a game question that we get a lot, this might satisfy that need, but as Kearns has really well put, it will recreate everything we're trying to see around this subject. So this is the practice. By all means, pause at any point if you want to have a read on screen or screenshot anything. But I've set it up in a 7v7, and I've set it up in an area that's got 16 zones or boxes or areas. Make sure you set it up in age-appropriate and stage-appropriate sizings and formats. So this is just a game. It's up to you how you sort of pull it to life. The way it works out, if you take the yellow team on screen there, the team going right to left, they have selected the value of the 8 boxes in the attacking half. I've set the rules that it's between 1 to 4, and you can only use each number twice, but you may choose to do that slightly different. And those are the weightings or the value attached to those boxes. So if an assist comes from one of those boxes and it ends up with a goal, obviously, then that's the value of that goal. So if the goal is scored from bottom left, that's a 2-pointer. Assist comes from there, it scores, you're 2-0 up. Obviously, the opposition would do the same. So actually, as a coach, your role now is to facilitate the game, but to start helping the players working out how are we going to get into those high-value boxes. How and when do we want to get the ball in there? And then when the ball does go in there, what's the next reaction? So is it some of the movement that Kearns you were talking about just now? What's the trigger that when we receive the ball there in a certain way, we play from next? Balanced off with that is the opposition. We know we're going to try and do everything they can to stop us. So if we look at the 2 4s on the picture there, I know the blue team are going to try and stop us getting into those areas. So we now start to get a little byproduct around principles of play of attacking and defending. The next part, and it's up to you with your players whether they could run both of these at the same time or whether you need to do one and then build into the other. But the second bit is just around each team having 1, 2, a couple of playmakers, assist kings or queens, however you want to sell it to them. But whenever they assist a goal, wherever they are at the time, it's worth double. So if they assist a goal from a 4-point area, that's suddenly worth 8. And what we're using here is constraints that really put into the players' minds a real focus of what they're trying to do. We're using rewards, and we're trying to relate back the pictures that they'll see to help them understand what they'll see at the weekend as well. So some ideas on games, really flexible. Please pitch them as appropriate for your players, but essentially trying to put a real focus on assists for the players instead.
Great example. Thank you both gentlemen for taking us from the data, relating it to what it might mean for coaches working at youth and grassroots levels, and offering us that wonderful example of how it can be applied within practice design. Thank you everyone for watching this webinar.